I've been seeing a disproportionate amount of hate and vitriol for Caroline, and I'm not sure if it's just because TikTok is an echo chamber for the same shitty takes, or people are bored and want to start discourse on a character from 2009, but either way, it gave me ammunition to make this video. I'm just gonna be straightforward. This is a biased analysis. Caroline is one of my favorite characters in the TVDU, and I've loved her throughout since my very first watch. In my humble opinion, she has one of the best character developments of the series, and I refuse to be silenced. So, without further ado, let's get into this analysis. Oh, and please try to remember that this is just my opinion, and when I begin to discuss why Caroline does the things she does, know that it's my theory and my perspective on how her inner psyche works. I'm not a writer for TVD, so unless I'm discussing canon facts, take what I say with a grain of salt, and I hope you enjoy the video. A lot of the criticism Caroline receives is from season 1, which in my opinion is some of the only valid criticism she gets. Caroline starts the series out being incredibly bitchy, filling the mean girl role that 2010s Hollywood was so obsessed with. From the first episode, we can tell that she acts this way because she's insecure and tends to see things as a competition. Though Caroline is beautiful in her own right, she feels outshined by our resident cool girl Elena Gilbert, who is effortlessly liked and sought after by the new mysterious boy in school. And that's where we get our first conflict. You see, while TVD tends to focus on the supernatural antagonists, we do have situations with human antagonists, and in a sense, I do believe Caroline filled that role, especially after she comes face to face with Damon Salvatore, but I'll jump into that chaos a little bit later in the video. For now, I want to discuss my theory on why Caroline acts the way she does in season 1, and how this behavior made her the perfect candidate for Damon's game. As previously mentioned, Caroline's insecurity often made her act out, mostly for the attention of guys like Matt or Stefan. However, I don't think her insecurities stemmed from guys. I think it stemmed from her toxic home life and bled into her friendship with Elena Gilbert. Before the show started, we're given brief information about Caroline's parents. One of them, Sheriff Forbes, who is a recurring character on the show, is on the town's council to protect the people from vampires, but from Caroline's perspective, she's just a workaholic mom that'd rather invest her time in the town than with her daughter. The other parent, her father, is a man who cheated on his wife and recently abandoned the home with his partner. Now, Caroline states that her dad and her have always had a very close bond, and that her mother and her, well, not so much. But now with him gone, what message could that have sent to her? Was she so worthless that he could easily choose his lover over her? Imagine for a second how that would have affected Caroline, what explanation she would have thought up, and then remember all the scenes she was in. Caroline in season 1 is going through a deep hurt and barely anyone acknowledges it. But now let's focus on how this affected her view of Elena. While Caroline struggled alone, Elena went through a similar grief, except unlike Caroline, Elena not only had Bonnie, but the entire town supporting her through this loss. This probably led to Caroline conceptualizing this negatively, as if it was a flaw against her. Why do people care when Elena gets hurt but not me? Caroline had to navigate these feelings all by herself, and that's a lot to expect a teenager to be able to handle healthily, so of course she throws herself at boys and comes across as desperate at times. Of course, she has a breakdown over Elena being the one that everyone picks because, in her head, Elena got the outreach of support when Caroline didn't. Elena was the one that Bonnie consoled for the entire summer. Elena was the one that Stefan was immediately attracted to when he came to Mystic Falls. Elena was the one that Matt was always going to love. Throughout season 1, Caroline probably felt not only stripped of her identity, but had to also constantly face the person she felt took everything from her, because in Caroline's mind, she's probably not even thinking about where this resentment actually stems from, aka the trauma from her parents' separation. She's thinking it's a personal attack, and Elena is the one leading the charge. And this exact mindset is how I think Caroline gets roped into the game of Damon Salvatore. Now, before we get into the section, I do want to make it clear that I may mention abuse, assault, and show scenes of said actions. If that is triggering for you, I will try to provide timestamps below so you can skip ahead. Anyway, let's continue. Caroline's main conflict in season 1 is her competition with Elena Gilbert. Whether that's for the title of Miss Mystic Falls, or Queen Bee at school, or even Bonnie Bennett's best friend, In the back of Caroline's mind, she's always thinking about how she can beat Elena. This mindset basically opens the door for Damon Salvatore to swoop into Caroline's life and make her his pawn without much fight. In Season 1, Damon has the plan to release Catherine from the tomb, but he also needs a spy who's easily malleable while also being close enough to the other targets in his game, aka Bonnie, Stefan, and Elena. So, Damon swoops in on Caroline almost immediately after Caroline watches Elena leave with Stefan. Damon is older, mysterious, and seemingly interested in Caroline first, which is enough for her to take the bait by him. He plays into Caroline's intrigue and toys with her until he knows she'll be ready to do anything for him. Fast forward a few episodes and Caroline sees Damon once again, and instead of being alarmed by him, she falls right into his trap and they go home together. Damon feeds on her, and when she comes to, remembering what occurred, he traps her and compels her to do his bidding. After this event, Caroline arrives to cheer practice, and her immediate response to seeing Elena's face is,
I got the other brother. Hope you don't mind. Sorry I'm late, girl.
This just asserts to me that Caroline doesn't understand the gravity of the situation she's in. All Caroline sees is that she finally won against Elena. And throughout this arc, Caroline continues to betray or mislead her friends in hopes to gain appreciation from Damon. Though Damon didn't know what Caroline went through before using her, her traumas allowed him easy access into her life, which ironically I think was a flawless way to set up Caroline's growth post-Season 1. So how did the writers redeem Caroline? Well, the most obvious way is that they allowed for Caroline to be seen sympathetically. Caroline is bitchy and judgmental, but by allowing us as the audience to follow her through her hardships, they also allow us to see her differently than how she outwardly presents. The writers really could have gone anywhere with Caroline's character, and I'm sure even killing her off was a possibility, but instead they began to build her into the character we know and love today. A few ways that I feel they helped bloom her arc was by allowing her to turn into a vampire in Season 2. It not only served a symbolic purpose by allowing her to shed her past and become anew, but it served a literal purpose as she would now have the physical strength to fight her hardships head-on and win. It's not a coincidence that one of Caroline's first scenes as a vamp shows her in heels, dark eyeshadow, a leather jacket, and pushing the hell out of Damon Salvatore. This Caroline Forbes is badass, and the writers want to make that very clear. And they do, repeatedly. Caroline as a vampire flips a switch. She no longer bends to the wills of others, and because of this switch, we ironically see Caroline become a better person. She's kinder and wiser, and a vast improvement from the human Caroline we knew. And now that we've gotten that out of the way, I'm going to get into the actual point of this video and talk about why Caroline deserves better from the fans. Specifically, the new TikTok fans that are overly critical of this generally well-liked character simply on the basis of her having a frenemy drama with Elena Gilbert, the main character. They always want to bring up the fact that Caroline was jealous of Elena and mean to her sometimes, and that's why they dislike Caroline, but, if you watched my video, you already know that Caroline's jealousy isn't really about Elena, so I won't repeat myself. I do just want to cover a few topics from the seasons, post-Season 1 I mean, that Caroline gets the most criticism about, so let's just jump into it. Number 1. When Caroline body shames Bonnie. I say this very loosely because the context behind the scene absolutely matters, and I feel like Caroline aunties always forget about the fact that Damon literally compelled Caroline to do whatever it takes to get Bonnie to give the necklace back. So yes, Caroline used a body-shaming tactic on Bonnie, which isn't nice at all, and I won't defend her for that. But she was being manipulated and abused by Damon, so all fault can't really fall on Care in this scene. I'll show it here.
I'm your friend. When you wear it, it makes you look fat. There, I said it, but it's because I'm your friend.
Number 2. When Caroline makes a joke about Damon being a man whore after Elena slept with him. Admittedly, Caroline made the joke without knowing Elena slept with him, and she was also inebriated as all the girls had been drinking, but for some reason, poor little Elena gets super butthurt and victim blames Caroline for sleeping with him, even though Elena knew that Damon abused her. And sure, I guess you could argue that they both took low blows that episode, but Caroline had a reason and trauma to back up what she said, while Elena basically threw back into Care's face all the abuse she endured while with Damon.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been good all night. I am stopping now.
No, don't stop on my account. Rip away. I mean, it's only Damon, right?
We'll say what you want about Ripper Stefan, but at least he wasn't a man-slut.
Come on. So what exactly was it about him that made you jump right into bed with him as soon as you met him?
I didn't know what a sociopathic narcissist he was.
And before I forget, after this whole argument happens, Caroline is the one to apologize to Elena.
I'm sorry. Okay, if you don't start hugging me back, this is gonna get really awkward really fast.
You've got my hands pinned down.
Oh. I'm a jerk. I promise to never again judge ever.
Secondly, because this scene is controversial within the fandom, people also like to bring up Caroline sleeping with Klaus, despite all the horrible things he did, to negate her anger at Elena for falling in love with her abuser. And my response to that is very simple. Caroline warded off Klaus for a long time because he was hurting her friends, and though Caroline did eventually cave into her desires and sleep with him after everything was over, she didn't expect anyone to feel happy for her. And she also didn't start a life with him, which is the key difference between Elena and Caroline in these scenes. Elena not only blamed Care for the abuse she faced while defending her relationship with Damon by saying,
He's always been there for me when I needed him.
Yeah.
But she also expected her friends to be happy for her. That's selfish as hell, but Caroline gets all the backlash for that. Number 3. When Caroline marries Stefan. Now, part of me understands the backlash for this decision, but I mostly attribute it to the writer's racism towards Bonnie per usual instead of it actually being a Caroline decision. Because if this show has told me anything about Caroline Forbes, it's that she rides for her friends, and it's very out of character that Caroline would have just walked back to Stefan with open arms, like the least she would have done was hold him accountable. But besides all that, a lot of aunties generally misrepresent Season 8 Caroline. And what I'm talking about is in these two scenes having to do with Caroline's relationship with Stefan. The first scene shows Caroline and Bonnie in a very tense situation because Bonnie went to go save Damon and Enzo from Sybil, but failed, and Caroline's a bit frustrated because they had a plan that wasn't stuck to. I've noticed that Caroline haters tend to restructure this scene to make it seem as though Caroline is being insensitive, but in reality, Caroline immediately consoles Bonnie and apologizes, which is something she is always doing because unlike some characters in TVDU, Caroline knows how to take accountability and grow. And as for this second scene, it's also just a misrepresentation from haters trying to find credible criticism against Caroline. It's basically just her and Bonnie discussing the wedding, and Caroline is so understanding of why Bonnie doesn't want to go.
There with you. 'Cause you know I would do anything for you. Can't do that to myself. You won't.
I understand. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry in ways that I didn't even know existed. I know that I am one step removed from the reason that you lost Enzo. So I am extremely grateful that you're even sitting here being my friend right now. Bonnie, I love you so much. So much. Please know that.
I do. I know you do.
But eventually, Bonnie makes the decision that she wants to share this moment with her best friend, which is something she decides on her own, and yet people still criticize Caroline and act like she guilt-tripped Bonnie when that's not the case at all. So yeah, that's all I have for today's video. There's probably more critiques about her character that I forgot to mention here, but honestly, I think I did my job, and I just wanted to do a chill video for today. Oh, and this is super off topic, but I did want to thank you guys for all the love of my Damon analysis. I'm so glad you've enjoyed it, and it recently hit 1,000 views, which is something I honestly never expected, so thank you so much. I know I haven't been super active on this channel, but it's only because when I release content, I want it to be my very best, so thank you again for being patient with me. More videos coming soon. Bye!